So, ladies and gentlemen, we have here Rebecca P. Beliard.
Hi.
So, round of applause. And a round of applause for Victoria. Victoria gave us a guide of some life hacks she told me earlier about that's a nice space. How come no one did anything about that?
The bookstore, the cafe.
That bookstore cafe. So,
Oh,
Rebecca.
doggy, how cute. You have a special guest.
So, Rebecca, let the folks know, so this course is called Making Moves in Miami. Our students are FIU Honor College students, so various majors. So give a round of applause to yourself and the students. Tell us a little bit about how you're an IP trademark attorney, right?
Yes.
But how did you get from there? Let the people know who you are before that journey.
Sure. Thank you guys for the warm welcome. That was like so awesome. But yes, my name is Rebecca P. Beliard. I am a business, intellectual property, and entertainment attorney. And my journey really started off working on the corporate side. So I worked at all these different companies. I worked at Sony Music, I worked at Amazon Music, CBS, Viacom. I worked at a pretty large law firm here in South Florida called Ackerman, working with Fortune 500 companies. And about a year and a half ago, I decided to launch my own firm so that I can help entrepreneurs and creatives and talent. And as part of servicing that population, one of the really most important functions that you can do, as I'm sure you guys learned earlier today, is protecting your intellectual property. So because of the nature of the business that I'm in, that's a fundamental, it's foundational to protect your IP. So I know we're gonna have a chance to talk about that earlier, but really I got into this from my love of the arts, my love of the creative environments. I love music, and it's such a core aspect of that business that you kind of can't skip it.
No, you can't skip it.
Not at all.
So good question for you. Have you ever, did you always want to go to law school, or did you want to do something else prior to that?
Yeah, so I knew that I always wanted to go to law school. I wanted to take my love for the entertainment industry and the arts, and then I loved to always put a case on, right? I always was asking why, or wanted to argue a case, or whatever it may be. And I wanted to figure out a way to, just blend those two passions together. So pursuing entertainment law was that avenue. And now as I continued on with my career, that started to evolve. Oftentimes people think of entertainment law and they think it's a specific area of the field, but ultimately entertainment is a business, right? Have you guys heard that line from that Jay-Z song? I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Yeah. Meaning he's the actual business. While he is the creative, this is a business. Whether you're a photographer, an artist, whatever it is, even though it's in the creative space, it's still a business and it needs to be run like a business. So I took that entertainment law background and I was more broadened essentially in focusing on businesses in general, and realized that the corporate space would allow me to still work in the entertainment industry, but also be able to work in the hospitality industry, be able to support entrepreneurs generally speaking. Lots of the clients that we had were startups just getting started that needed a foundation. We would service them up until they would get acquired by a larger company. But yeah, it really started off with my love of blending those two fields together, and about 10 years later, here we are.
And so here we are today in this class talking about the business and the IP stuff. So you said Jay-Z's line, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, right? Yeah, so some of our students I don't know if I want to start my own business, and so on and so forth, but each of us here have 5,000 data points that somebody wants and sells day in and day out. Can you talk about the business of that in terms of their own intellectual property as a human being? Mm-hmm. Is there such a thing?
Yeah, so you guys in this room, day to day, are creating IP. Now, there's a difference between creating IP and then registering IP. We'll talk about creating IP. So right here, I see two people with their phones out. You guys are creating IP, right? When you write something down, just putting an idea to paper, that is actually intellectual property. When you create content online, you're creating IP. So IP is literally part of our every single day lives. You draw something on a piece of paper, that is IP, that can be protected. The difference is that most people don't actually protect and register their IP. So there's different government entities where you can go and take that IP and go protect it so it's registered. So that's called the United States Patent and Trademark Office, where they protect patents and trademarks, and then you have the US Copyright Office, where you protect copyrights. So those are the 3 types of IP. However, you have a statutory right to your IP, meaning in the law that the law is written in a way such that when you put your idea pen to paper, that becomes your IP. The biggest difference is whether you register it so that you actually have it in the system that this is my IP, and not just kind of here in no man's land where yes, it's still your IP, it's just not registered and not taken account for. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have some musicians in here.
Ooh.
Sebastian is in the band, and we have.
Who's Sebastian?
Sebastian.
Okay, cool. What instrument do you play, or do you sing, or?
I play the drums,
Cool.
the guitar, and the bass.
Oh, you are multi-talented in here. I love that. Who
Yes.
else? Who else do we have in here?
And we have, so going back to, stick with Sebastian for now, and then we're going to go
Yeah.
to Olivia, our painter, and our drawer. So Sebastian says he wants to compose music,
Yeah.
right? Have you composed songs already, or you want to compose?
I just I compose, but I don't do mostly that. I just like to perform. I like that side more, just performing.
Yeah. So honestly, there's so many different pieces of IP when it comes to music, right? When you compose like the music sheet, that is a piece of IP. The entire production when it's put together, the melody and the lyrics together, master, right? The melody by itself, the production is a piece of IP. If you videotape, right? You hear me videotaping, I'm paging myself, y'all. If you essentially capture that content in the studio, that is a different piece of IP that has the visual component. So many different pieces of IP live in art that the way I like to look at it is you want to dissect those pieces. How do we dissect those pieces and make sure each piece is protected individually, and that the compilation of it all needs to be protected as well, because it's different contributors, right? The person who is singing the song might not necessarily be the same person who wrote the song,
yeah.
but they both get protected, right? That's why, songwriter plays an essential part of the puzzle, because not all the time are singers writing the song. But think of it as a big puzzle, and you want to put the pieces together, that you protect all the pieces individually, but then remember, we want to protect the master, the entire piece as well. That's why I think it's fascinating, because a lot of the times, remember that line again from Jay-Z, you are a business, so it's great to have that creative juices flow, all the things, but you want to make sure that you're treating this as a business, if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, this is your revenue, this is something you have to protect, so.
And live with. And then we have Olivia. Olivia.
Who's Olivia? Hi,
Basically,
Olivia.
Tell us.
What do you do, Olivia?
I draw and I paint.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is protected by copyright, right?
Right.
So paintings, whether they are displayed in a museum or not, right? It's still a piece of intellectual property that you want to make sure that's protected, especially if you want to reproduce it. There's so many different ways to generate revenue off of IP, and I'll give you an example. A lot of the times artists, they will license their works to different brands to use. I work with an incredible artist, her name is Reina Noriega, and she has licensed her work to so many different brands, right? Her artwork is in Bell Harbor, it's on wine bottles, it's on all over the place. So it's certainly an avenue that you can use as a career, not just a hobby, because most of the time it starts off as a hobby, but it certainly is something that you can use. She works with Walmart, she works with all these big brands. And she's drawing all day and licensing her artwork, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, imagine, Olivia, you have your shirt.
She has clothes, yeah. She has nail art, like those little nail stickers. I mean, she has taken her art and literally it's on notebooks, it's on cups, it's on everything.
You can put on beer bottles, you can
Yeah,
put on anything,
it's pretty
but
awesome.
it depends on you because you own the rights.
Yeah.
And I think Karen is a photographer, right?
Yeah.
So Karen, talk how often
We
do you
have
take the time?
we have a multi-talented group here. I love it. What kind of photography do you like to take?
I like brand
Okay,
photography, also portraits.
nice. Same thing. Photographs are protected by copyright law. And it's the same thing. You can, and there's multiple ways to do deals, right? When you're working with different brands and businesses, you can license your work. And what that essentially means is I maintain the ownership, but I'm licensing it to you to use for a given period of time. So it could be a year, 2 years. It could be in perpetuity, which I'm always going to recommend not to do that. Perpetuity means forever.
Forever, ever.
But if you don't have a lawyer and you're just signing something and you don't really know what that means, then you can kind of find yourself in a bind. But ultimately, you want to limit that. And you could have an exclusive license, which means I'm gonna take my photos, you're taking photos for a brand, for instance. It's like you taking your photos and saying, here Walmart, I took a picture, or here Amazon, or here Target, I took these pictures. Most of the time, a brand's going to want to own the photos that you take of them, and that's okay if you do. It's something called a work made for hire, where you're hired to take these photos for them, but that comes with a price as well. So oftentimes we think that like ownership, like always maintain the ownership, but there are instances when you can be there to take photos for them, but that comes with a price, right? It's not the same price as it is if you're gonna maintain it, ownership, and license it to them. It's more of a cost, right? So it's not a bad thing necessarily, but there's just multiple ways to structure those type of deals. And then you can also do non-exclusive deals too, right? They don't have to be exclusive. You can take the same picture and license it to 5 different brands, and obviously the rate is gonna be lower, but then you're able to make more money. So everything has a price in terms of when structuring these type of business deals, right? You just wanna make sure it makes sense for what you're doing.
Avenues of revenue. And then we have KJ.
Yes.
KJ is in the performing arts.
Hey girl! Tell us what you do.
Okay, it's kind of hard.
No pressure!
Right now, I'm a production associate at a theater.
Oh, awesome.
And also, I am an event ambassador at a performing arts house, the Adrian Arts Center.
Oh,
And
no big deal.
and I am the co-owner of a youth sports program.
Wow.
So, lots of
Lots of moving
things there.
pieces. Yeah. So I'll focus on the last 2 that you said. Theater, obviously, like screenplays, all these things are also protected by copyright. Any type of dramatic work, any of that is protected by copyright. So in terms of whether you're, whether you're a screenwriter or whether you're, think of again, it's the puzzle, like it's the pizza pie, right? There's so many different components of even of film, right? If we think of film in a bigger, think of it high level. The person who wrote the script, the person who designed the set, like there's so many different pieces, and you want to make sure that you're dissecting things and protecting them all individually. Now you also said you're the co-owner of
A youth sports program.
a youth sports program. So for instance, let's talk about businesses and how trademark in the traditional sense of a business, the name of a business, for instance, should be protected, right, by trademark. A lot of the times people build businesses and they don't actually own the rights to the name of their business, which is could be problematic because 1, you may be infringing on someone else's IP. Someone else may actually own that name and now you're using it. And then 2, we want to make sure that we're actually protecting what we're building so that no one else can come and take our name and try to do the same thing. We have that protection. Businesses have multiple types of IP that you protect. I'll give you guys an example. So Nike, for instance. Everybody know Nike? Yeah, does anybody works? I'm sure some people in here have Nikes on. I think I've seen one already. Nike doesn't just protect the name of their business, Nike, but the little swoosh, right? That check, that's protected. That's a logo. What's Nike's slogan? Does anyone here know it? Just do it. You guys knew it right away. I didn't have to say it. That slogan is protected. Like Jordans, for instance, the different product lines are protected. So you want to think about, again, think big picture and then kind of hone in and see what are the different pieces of this business that needs to have protection through intellectual property law. So I say that because you're doing the creative side, but then also you're running a business as well, because a nonprofit is a business. So you want to think about those different things in your business that are core to your business, and what I tell people, what is generating the revenue for you guys? What is the most important assets in those businesses that you need to protect? But obviously the intellectual property assets.
Thank you. So round of applause for that quick section. So you mentioned Jordans. Michael Jordan did not own his name for a while.
Yeah, guys, let's talk about that. And have you guys heard about the NIL deals, name, image, and likeness? Have we heard about that yet? So your name, image, and your likeness, you have an inherent right to use it, right? Okay, maybe you guys have heard about what's going on in the news with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and the use of their children's names. Has anybody heard of that one yet? Okay, so pop culture, why not? Kim Kardashian registered the name of her children, all of her children's names, and she owns the name of her children's name. And essentially what that allows you to do is allows you to use this name in connection to a commercial purpose. What that means is you're using it in business. So now Kanye wants to create this song and use the children's names, but Kim Kardashian with her lawyer hats coming in saying, hey, no, you cannot use their names in connection with a commercial purpose because music makes money, so that's a commercial purpose, without our permission. So she essentially sent a cease and desist letter to saying, hey, stop, you can't do that, you don't have those rights. And obviously, you know, it's still unfolding. He's upset that he can't use his children's name. It's not that you can't use the name, you just can't use it in connection to a commercial purpose that's making money, because you need permission from the rights owner, which is Kim Kardashian. So that's like the importance of understanding your name and the ability to protect it as well. You know, even like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, for instance, they have hundreds of trademarks for their name. And what I mean by that is the United States Patent and Trademark Office doesn't give you just blanket protection to use something. You actually have to say how you're using it. So for instance, Apple has protection for watches, iPhones, headphones, computers, but Apple doesn't have protection in connection to furniture. They only have protection for how they're actually using it or how they intend to use it. And essentially the USPTO gives them a limited amount of time to prove that they're going to use it.
Yeah, there's like Apple doesn't have, there's a company, an Apple, like fruit company called
Yes.
Apple Macintosh.
Yep. They could still have,
They can
like it's two different things. Well, I wanna backtrack on that a little bit. They can still call that Apple Macintosh, but however, the USPTO doesn't want to give permission for someone to actually use something that has the exact name. So even though they can use that name, we don't want to forego other people from essentially being able to call it Apple Company Apple too, if that's essentially what it is.
Because it's an apple.
Exactly.
And it's a use for the fruit and not in technology and not in that space.
Exactly.
So we talked about you working for these firms, and I think you worked for Amazon recently. I think that's when you
That's
and I
the most
connected.
recent role, yep.
And you did 3-point cup in the B's, in the $1 billion
We
deals.
negotiated deals that were generating revenue in the billions, yeah.
The billions of dollars. So why did you jump from Amazon to starting your own thing?
Yeah, right. I get that question all the time. How could you leave, you know, one of the largest companies in the world to start your own firm? And for me, really, I wasn't, you know, I worked in the corporate space for a very long time, but I wanted to be able to connect with my clients in a more meaningful way. As a woman of color, I saw oftentimes that we don't necessarily get representation. Women, people of color, really people starting their businesses from the ground up, because most of the time they're intimidated by lawyers, they don't feel like they have access to lawyers, and I just kept seeing the same mistakes happening over and over and over, even down to the basics of, you know, protecting the name of your business. Like that is your livelihood, right? So for me, it was really more of doing more meaningful work in my community and creating impact and allowing people to build legacies, right? When you protect your intellectual property assets, that allows you to grow and build your legacy. Without that, it's not truly yours and you don't truly own it. So being in this position now has afforded me the opportunity to work with amazing entrepreneurs, creatives, talent, and it's exciting. It's been about a year and change for me now, and we are going strong. You know, we're growing, just hired somebody, so it's exciting to be making that impact.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So talking about legacy, right? That's a big L.
Yes.
But let's talk about another L. Like taking an L, taking a loss.
Okay, all
and
right.
learning, right?
It happens to all of us.
It happens to all of us. So
Yes.
if you don't mind, share an L that you took, and how did you overcome that L to get to, and what was that lesson that you took away from that and learned about yourself and others in that L that you took that lead to legacy?
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, I am type A. Lawyers are very type A. They want things to be very perfect and by the book. But I learned it's not about perfection, it's about progression, right? I oftentimes want, you know, analysis paralysis. You kind of overthink it. You want to wait till it's perfect. You don't want to launch the business until everything is in, all your ducks in a row, everything, you dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's. But the reality of it is that you just have to start, right? There's never going to be a perfect timing. And for me, I feel like I delayed my calling quite a bit because I was kind of waiting for perfect timing. And I don't think, again, there's never a perfect timing. You kind of have to just do it scared and, you know, recognize that you're doing your best. As long as you're putting your best foot forward and you're taking steps every day, even if they're baby steps, they don't have to be these huge steps. It's just moving towards that goal every single day and not necessarily delaying it, waiting for perfection, waiting for the perfect timing, because there's no such thing as perfect timing. So essentially doing it scared.
Yeah, doing it scared. And so, last question for you before we go into the Q&A session. So this course again is called Making Moves in Miami.
Okay.
So what does making moves in Miami mean to you?
To me, every shot not taken is a shot missed. So you have to get into the arena. You cannot be a spectator in your own life and be on the sidelines waiting. You got to get in the arena and you got to be able to get beat And then you gotta have the ability to also win and take the winning shot.
She said, "Good beat."
Listen, it happens. Like, someone might beat you. Someone might beat you, and that's okay. Because guess what?
Take that punch.
Literally, you might take the L, and you have to be able to be okay with taking the L and recognize it's not failure, it's feedback. What did I do in this situation that I could have done better that I didn't do better? What can I learn from this? I always tell myself it's not failure, it's feedback. But guess what? You got into the arena while someone was still on the sideline. So take the shot.
Take the shot.
Take the
indeed,
shot.
Indeed. We have one thing to do before we go to Q&A that we want to present to you.
Awesome. Oh, you guys are the best. Aw. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I would love that.
Not you, but Katia.
Okay, I would love that.
Certificate of appreciation. The certificate is probably awarded to Rebecca P. Beliard. We take great pleasure in presenting the certificate of appreciation to you, our Making Moves in Miami, Florida International University Honors College guest speaker Rebecca B. Beliard, in recognition of your valuable contribution to our community during the 19th day of March 2020.
Thank you so much. Very beautiful collection.
I guess we'll take a picture. Right?
Yes, do you mind taking one for us? Okay.
Ooh, I got the flash. You got it.
Okay. I'll take a few.
Thank you, Katia. Good
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So now we are time for Q&A. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, please round of applause. Any questions, thoughts, feedback? KJ.
So as you said, you're type A, lawyers are type A.
Mhm.
I'm pretty type A myself, and one big thing for me is stability, liking to keep stability. So what was that transition like from kind of being stable with this big company to, starting a whole new endeavor? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, it's a lot of growing pains. If I'm being totally honest. I had planned for it, and I made sure, obviously you can't just take a leap without having a plan. I made sure that, I'm gonna have these savings, this is what I'm going to invest into the company, this is going to be for this. But ultimately, creating that business plan and putting pen to paper and literally just starting gives you stability in the sense that I know that I have this map that I've mapped things out for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but also being willing and able to adjust. Because that was a little hard for me. Like I had, go to school, get a good job, and then it's like, now I'm like leaving it all behind. And I'm raised by Haitian parents who are very strict, and they're like, what are you doing? But having the plan and keeping at core your mission. Remember that these steps need to align with your mission. And if you always remember your mission and your why, you'll never get lost and you'll feel grounded in that stability.
So you mentioned you worked at Sony and Amazon in music. Like, how was your experience, and like, what if you have like a moment or a situation that you went through that was hard, or a case or something? Because I'm also interested in working in the music business, but more like in the marketing side. So I want to learn more about it.
Yeah. So they're both very big organizations, right? There are so many people who work for both of them. There's constantly things that you have to learn on the job, like as it's coming, like especially now with AI, right? There's like the law every day is changing about how AI can be protected, can it be protected? And you have all these different business units that are coming to you for advice. And you kind of have to think of it in twofold. You have to think of it from a practical perspective, and then you obviously have to think of it from the legal perspective. But just having the willingness to understand and to acknowledge that you're not going to know everything, but that you are going to figure it out. Like anything else in life, right? You don't need to have all the answers. A lot of the times people feel a lot of pressure. Like if I'm in this high-powered role, in this high-powered environment, whatever it may be, I need to know everything and be everything. And anytime someone asks me a question, I need to be able to spit the answer out. No, you are human, right? And as long as you're committed to constantly evolving and learning, then you will always succeed, right? You will always succeed. And people respect that. People respect, like, you know what? Let me look into that. Let me get back to you. You know what I mean? But then also just being curious, having it on your own, wanting to learn about things on your own. If you want to pursue marketing, what are the cutting edge areas in marketing now that there's a hole? Find the problem and be the solution for that, and then you will become indispensable.
Especially in the day of AI, because AI, the question is that all of us have to ask ourselves, what can you do that AI cannot?
Yeah.
Or what can you do that generative AI cannot give? Oof.
And I wouldn't be scared of AI either. Think of the music industry and how it's evolved. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember this, but maybe not. I don't even know if you were born. Napster? Does anyone remember what Napster? LimeWire? Does anybody? Okay. So back in our day, before there was like Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, there's something called Napster and LimeWire where you would like, actually, let's take it back all the way. Before that, there were CDs.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all know what a CD is? Okay. There were CDs, there was floppy disks. That's how music was consumed. But with technology, Napster came about, LimeWire came about, where people could download MP3s and listen to music. A lot of the times, the record labels were fighting that. But it's kind of like, listen, the technology's here. Whether you embrace it and get on the bus or get off the bus and get left behind. So figure out how we can use these new technologies to help us, again, accomplish our missions. Know your why, accomplish that mission, and stay ahead. Embrace it, stay ahead, and figure out the problems and provide the solutions.
So it's consistent, right? Figuring out the problems and providing the solution. Any other questions? Because we have the video that we do at the end. Let me know if you're ready. But two more questions. Okay, we got a few. Good, awesome.
You said don't be afraid to take the shot. I really like that. I'm wondering, was there a situation in your life where you've kind of learned to adapt that, or is that just something that came to you over time?
I wish I could say I came out the womb taking the shot. I wish I could say that. I certainly didn't. I think it's just trial and error, pushing yourself every single day outside your comfort zone. Even now, as owning my own law firm, there are certain deals that we did in our first year that I was like, there's no way we can do this. And then we were doing multi-million-dollar deals. And I told myself, like, let's start out small. Let's start out with these things. But I'm like, God has, I'm a believer, and I'm like, God has ordained something bigger and better. And even though you can't see that, this is what he's calling you to do. So part of it is like my faith. But the other part of it is just constantly pushing myself, even if it's an inch outside of my comfort zone, it's every day. Because when you look back a year, like even now, I'm sitting in front of you guys, I still can't believe I left, this nice cushy corporate job, working at Amazon during COVID. The stock was great. Like, it still kind of was like, you did that. And there was a time when I'm like, there's no way. And a year and change later, I'm sitting here as a, owner of a law firm. So every day commit to progress. It doesn't have to be great progress, but progress. Some days are gonna be better than others.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Since you mentioned you worked in entertainment law, I also want to work in music marketing and stuff. And so I listen to artists from different countries and stuff, and they always talk about or at least their labels always have distribution deals within the United States, like BMG or something, even though they're from India or Spain or whatever. But I don't really. I mean, I'm assuming you worked in this. I don't know if you do specifically distribution deals, but I wanted to ask why the importance of it. I don't really get why it's that important because you can get streams from anywhere across the world regardless if you're in a different country than the United States, but why are distribution deals important for artists?
Yeah, sometimes those deals come with different marketing commitment. The majority of the time they do actually. But again, there's so many different ways you can skin a cat. But with distribution deals in particular, say you have a distribution deal and there's a minimum spend of, $100,000 on marketing. Because getting your music on Spotify or getting your music on an Amazon or getting your music on Apple doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get the spotlight. If you guys were all to open up your phones now, you're going to see some artists that have spotlights, you're going to see some artists that have placements on playlists. It essentially pushes your music further and it gives you more resources that you wouldn't have as an individual. So there's certainly benefits to it. Now, obviously, there's a percentage of the amount of revenue that you're generating through royalties that is getting cut for that. But ultimately, think of it this way. If you were able to make $100 on your own, but now if you're working with a distributor and you're making $1,000 and their cut is say 10%, so their cut is 100, you're still walking away more with giving away 10% than you are if you would have just pushed your music on your own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's also like, I tell people this, like even like with talent, with new recording albums, like they have a record deal and they're like, oh, I don't, a lot of the times people don't want to get a lawyer because of the cost. But entertainment lawyers, for instance, they charge a percentage. So say your deal started off at let's say 10,000, but now it got negotiated to 100,000. That 5% is still a small, like you're walking away with more money than you would have if you would have just kind of signed it as is. Does that make sense? So again, the same thing, look at the bigger picture. Like that applies to so many different things. Take a step back and look at the bigger picture, and then you can kind of see more of the value and how the pieces all come together.
It's like the Jason Weaver deal we saw earlier, right? He could have gotten the $2 million. And that's great. But he did the royalty deals that ended up getting more than $2 million. And Gabby, you mentioned about distribution. Yes, anyone could be on streaming on Spotify, but and even on Amazon. Like I could independently distribute stuff on Amazon, but Amazon and Spotify pay like a penny, not even a penny, like 1/10 of a penny of a penny of a penny of a penny. So the distribution deal is probably better than just going directly to the Spotify. But that's, But yes, you had another question.
Okay, so let's say I protect an IP, right? How does it work? Do I need to be on top of everything and then see if they want to use it to claim for my part or?
Because there's multiple types of IP. Is there a particular kind of IP that you're thinking? And I can focus on that. But if not, generally how it works is once you create something, you own it. Remember, there's a statutory right. Statutes are laws. So you have a statutory right to own your IP. However, we want to register it. So let's say, take the example of a trademark.
Okay.
You created a name for you created a name for something, right? FIU is a trade. There's multiple trademarks in this building. You would now take that and go through the application process of getting it registered. It's not like you submit it and then you get it. It actually goes through a process. There's like a special court. There's examiners who review what it is that you're doing. And then once it goes through that registration process, if they have questions, they can issue something called an office action. Once you answer those questions, if you're able to properly answer them and it meets their criteria, then it goes through the, essentially it's called a publication process, which think of it as like a wedding. Like think of it as when the priest says like, speak now or forever hold your peace. It essentially gives the public the opportunity to oppose your mark if they say, hey, no, that's something that I created. Once it gets to that part, then you get your registration, and now you have your trademark registered, and you get a certificate of registration. You can say, hey, this is mine, and only I can exclusively use it. So that's how that works in that form of IP. But essentially, there's like a review process. It goes through that, and then hopefully you make it through that, and then you get the registration. Things that don't get approval are like, for instance, if I wanted to sell, like if I wanted to have a shoe store and call it shoe store. If it's a shoe store that's selling shoes, I'm not gonna get that protected because they're gonna say that's generic, like that's explaining what it is, and we don't wanna give you that permission exclusively, and now anybody that has a shoe store, they can't use the word shoe store because it's owned by someone. So it needs to be unique enough, essentially, to get that protection. And this, again, is as it relates to trademark law.
And like Taco Tuesdays or something, yes. Sorry, you got a couple minutes.
Anna, so you know CrossFit? You know what is CrossFit?
The CrossFit.
Oh, CrossFit, yeah.
CrossFit?
Yeah.
So you see how if you put a gym, let's say in another country, and you use the name CrossFit, you need to pay like royalty to them.
Good.
Is that IP or is that something else?
Very good question. So IP needs to be registered by jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is a country, right? So the United States Patent and Trademark Office, you register it here, and that gives you protection in the United States. If you want protection, say you're opening a CrossFit in Italy or something, you need to register with them to get protection. Now, there are agreements between certain countries that if you have a registration here, some places may honor it, it becomes a much easier process. Some places you have to go through their entire process, it's completely distinct and separate. But your protection applies in the jurisdiction that you apply for. Good question.
Yeah, quick question. How can you like help or like teach artists that are starting to be like have everything legal right? Because right now I'm working with a friend that she's managing two like big artists, and one of them like signed a deal that it's really bad, like it's making him lose money. So how can you help these artists to be organized with the legal things?
Yeah, so I like to recommend resources. I mean, first and foremost, the number one resource is someone who's an entertainment lawyer. And I'm specific about saying entertainment or even specifically music, because there's all types of law, right? So think of it as like, I try to explain the legal practice as like medicine. If you have an eye problem, you're not gonna go to the heart surgeon, right? You wanna go, same thing with law. There's law for, there's an immigration lawyer, there could be a personal injury lawyer, there could be a construction lawyer. You wanna make sure you go to the right type of profession, like the right profession, AKA legal, but then also the right subspecialty. So in this instance, entertainment. That's gonna be your best resource. But even before that, there's so many tools that can be used to educate yourself. So there's a really good book called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business. I tell people like that will give you the overview of everything from legal to marketing to all the different pieces of the puzzle to have a successful career in music. So self-education, there's lots of different courses that teach you about the music industry. I'm happy, after the presentation to give you some of those resources and exchange my information with you so you have that. But the biggest thing that you can do is self-education, and then realizing when you are negotiating a deal, most of the way that entertainment lawyers work is they get a percentage of the deal. So it's not actually that you're coming out of pocket to pay for that if you're getting a cash, like if you're getting it in advance. Their fee comes from the advance. So it makes sense to have someone look at this knowing that they're gonna get paid when I get paid, and I don't even have to come out of pocket. So I feel like if more artists knew that, they would utilize entertainment lawyers more, and not sign.
By the way.
Yeah, that's typically how entertainment lawyers get paid. So that's for what we call a revenue generating deal. Now, if it's a non-revenue generating deal, then yes, there's a cost with that, but that typically doesn't happen until after the deal. That's like if there's like a producer agreement or a songwriter's agreement, things like that. But when you actually have a deal on the table with a recording agreement, 100% goes to a lawyer because they take the percentage from the money that you get paid. So it's almost like a win-win. You don't have to come out of pocket, and 9 times out of 10 they're able to. They are negotiating better terms. Whenever you bring a lawyer to the table, you will always get a better deal off the bat.
Any other questions? All right, let's stand up and stretch. We're gonna do a quick little video.